Nobody beats this game. And then a woman from 7,000 miles away rewrote every rule Steve Harvey thought he knew. The board was dark, all 5 answers hidden. The clock had not started yet. Steve Harvey was standing at the Fast Money podium holding his card, and he was looking at the woman across from him, and something about the way she was standing, feet planted exactly shoulder-width apart, hands resting on the counter with her fingers spread flat, chin level, eyes locked on his face without blinking, made him pause. He paused the way a man pauses when he realizes the person across from him is not nervous. Not even a little. Not even pretending to be. Steve had seen thousands of contestants stand at this podium. He had seen them bounce, fidget, crack their knuckles, laugh too loud, apologize before they even started. This woman did none of those things. She stood the way a surgeon stands before a first incision. She stood like she had already won, and the game just hadn't caught up yet. Her name was Priya Venkataraman. She was 43 years old. She was a biostatistician at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health in Baltimore, Maryland. She made $127,000 a year. She had a 7-year-old son named Arjun, and a 5-year-old daughter named Mira, and a husband named Sanjay, who was a cardiologist at Johns Hopkins Hospital. They lived in a 4-bedroom house in Ellicott City that they bought in 2017 for $485,000. By every measure visible from the outside, Priya Venkataraman's life was exactly what her parents had imagined when they put her on a plane from Chennai to the United States 21 years ago. What nobody in that studio knew, what Sanjay knew, what her mother Lakshmi knew, what her sister Deepa knew, but what Priya had never spoken about to anyone else, was that Priya Venkataraman had not always been the woman standing at that podium with steady hands and unblinking eyes. There had been a time when Priya's hands shook so badly she could not hold a pen. There had been a time when her eyes could not focus on a single page of text. There had been a time when the woman who would one day do something never before done in the 47-year history of Family Feud could not get out of bed in the morning, and the only reason she eventually did was because a 7-month-old baby in the next room was crying, and nobody else was going to pick him up. Priya was born on March 27, 1980, in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. Her father, Ramachandran Venkataraman, was a mathematics professor at the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. Her mother, Lakshmi, was a chemistry teacher at a private girls' school in Adyar. They lived in a modest flat in Basant Nagar, 3 blocks from the beach, and the flat smelled always of sandalwood and sambar, and the jasmine flowers Lakshmi strung into garlands every morning for the small brass Ganesha on the prayer shelf. Ramachandran taught Priya mathematics the way some fathers teach their children to ride a bicycle, with patience, with repetition, and with the absolute conviction that falling was not failure, but data. By the time Priya was 9, she could solve quadratic equations. By 12, she was working through probability problems from her father's university textbooks. By 15, she had placed first in the Tamil Nadu State Mathematics Olympiad, competing against 14,000 students. Ramachandran drove her to the awards ceremony on his scooter, weaving through traffic on Anna Salai, with Priya holding the trophy against her chest. And when they got home, Lakshmi had made kesari, Priya's favorite sweet, and the 3 of them sat on the balcony and ate it with their hands and watched the sun go down over the Bay of Bengal. Ramachandran died on September 8, 1999. Priya was 19. He was 54. A brain aneurysm, sudden and total, at his desk at IIT Madras during a Tuesday afternoon lecture. His students said he had been writing an equation on the blackboard. He was mid-symbol, the integral sign, the long curved line that means everything adds up, when his hand stopped moving. He was dead before he reached the floor. Lakshmi was devastated, but Lakshmi was also a woman who had grown up in a village in Thanjavur district where her mother carried water 2 kilometers every morning. And Lakshmi understood that grief is not a place you live. It is a road you walk until your legs remember how to carry you. She sold the scooter. She took extra tutoring students. She told Priya that her father's dream had been for her to study in America, and that dream would not die with him. Priya arrived at the University of Michigan in August of 2001, 21 years old, with 2 suitcases, $4,000 in savings that Lakshmi had gathered over 19 months, and a photograph of her father holding the probability textbook he had written in 1992. She completed her master's in biostatistics in 2003. She completed her PhD in 2007. She met Sanjay at a Diwali celebration at a friend's apartment in Ann Arbor in November of 2005. He was in his 2nd year of medical school. He burned the samosas he was supposed to bring and showed up with a box of Dunkin' Donuts instead. And Priya laughed so hard she spilled chai on her sari. And Sanjay handed her a napkin and said, "I am much better with hearts than with cooking." And Priya said, "That is the worst line I have ever heard." And they were married 14 months later. They moved to Baltimore in 2009. Arjun was born in 2016. And then, everything broke. Priya had been working 70-hour weeks during her pregnancy. She was leading a research team analyzing mortality data for a global tuberculosis study. She was the principal investigator. She was responsible for a $2.3 million grant from the National Institutes of Health. She worked until the day before her due date. She answered emails from her hospital bed 6 hours after delivery. She went back to work 19 days after Arjun was born. 6 weeks later, she could not get out of bed. It started as exhaustion. Then it became something heavier. She lay in bed, and the ceiling above her seemed to press down inch by inch, until the distance between her body and the plaster felt like it was shrinking. She could not think. She could not read. She, Priya Venkataraman, who had solved quadratic equations at 9, who had placed first among 14,000 students, who could calculate a confidence interval in her head while standing in line at the grocery store, could not read a paragraph without losing the thread of the sentence by the 3rd word. Postpartum depression. Severe. Her obstetrician, Dr. Linda Chen, diagnosed it at Priya's 8-week checkup. Dr. Chen said it was common. She said it was treatable. She said it was not a failure. Priya heard the word failure and nothing else. She told Sanjay she was tired. That was the lie. She told Lakshmi, who called from Chennai every Sunday morning at 8 a.m., that she was wonderful, that the baby was beautiful, that everything was perfect. She hung up the phone, and she sat on the bathroom floor, and she pressed her palms against the tiles, and she whispered to herself, "Get up, get up, get up," like an incantation, like a prayer, like the mathematical proof of a theorem her body refused to solve. It was Arjun who saved her, not through a moment or a gesture or a word. He was 7 months old. He had no words. He saved her through need. He cried at 3 a.m., and Priya's feet hit the floor before her mind was awake, and her arms reached into the crib and lifted him, and his small, hot head pressed against her collarbone, and she stood in the dark and swayed, and her body remembered what her mind had forgotten, that she was needed, and being needed was enough of a reason to stand. She started medication in April of 2017. She started therapy with Dr. Ananya Krishnamurthy, a psychiatrist in Columbia, Maryland, who was also from Tamil Nadu, who also understood what it meant to be a woman who had crossed an ocean to be excellent, and then could not find the word excellent in her own reflection. It took 11 months. 11 months of medication adjustments, of therapy sessions, of Sanjay waking with the baby so Priya could sleep, of Lakshmi flying from Chennai to Baltimore, 9,476 miles, and staying for 6 weeks, and cooking sambar and rasam, and stringing jasmine flowers in a kitchen that did not have a prayer shelf until Lakshmi built one out of a wooden cutting board and a brass figurine she carried in her suitcase. By 2018, Priya was back. Not the same Priya, a different one. A Priya who understood that the mind is not a machine, and that breaking is not the opposite of brilliance, but sometimes its cost. She returned to her research. She published 4 papers in 2 years. Meera was born in 2019, and this time Priya took 12 weeks of leave, and she did not answer a single email. And when Sanjay asked her if she was okay, she said, "I am not okay and I am not pretending to be, and that is how I know I will be." It was Deepa, Priya's younger sister, who signed the family up for Family Feud. Deepa was 37 and lived in Houston, and she had watched Priya come back from the darkest place a person can go, and she wanted to give her sisters something absurd, something loud, something that had nothing to do with data sets and grant proposals and confidence intervals. The Venkataraman family arrived at the studio in Atlanta on March 3, 2023. Priya, Sanjay, Deepa, Priya's cousin Arun, and Lakshmi. Lakshmi was 69 years old. She was wearing a deep blue silk sari with gold threading, the same sari she had worn to Priya's wedding, and she walked into the studio with her back straight and her chin lifted, and she looked at the Family Feud set the way she had once looked at the Bay of Bengal from the balcony in Besant Nagar, with the calm certainty that large things are simply made of small things arranged in order. They wore no matching shirts. Lakshmi had said, "We are the Venkataramans. We do not need shirts to know who we are." The first round was against the Kowalski family from Milwaukee. Priya won the face-off. The question was, name something that gets bigger the more you use it. Priya said, "Your brain." It was the number 3 answer. The family played. They cleared the board without a single strike. Steve Harvey looked at Priya after the round and said, "Ma'am, your family just played a flawless round." And Priya tilted her head slightly and said, "The night is young, Steve." The audience laughed. Steve pointed at her and said, "Oh, I like her. I like her a lot." Round 2. Deepa won the face-off. They cleared the board again. 0 strikes. Steve's eyebrows climbed higher. Round 3. Arun won the face-off. They cleared the board again. 3 rounds, 0 strikes total. Steve turned to the camera and said, "In my entire time hosting this show, I have never, do you hear me? Never seen a family clear 3 boards with no strikes. This is not normal." Round 4. Sanjay won the face-off. They played. First answer, correct. Second answer, correct. Third answer, Lakshmi's turn. The question was, name something you do when you're nervous. Lakshmi looked at Steve and she said, in her precise, accented English, "I pray." It was the number 1 answer. The board lit up. Lakshmi pressed her hands together in front of her chest and closed her eyes for 1 second. Not a performance, not for the camera, a reflex. The same gesture she made every morning in front of the brass Ganesha. And Steve Harvey watched her, and his face softened, and he said quietly, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, you do." They cleared the 4th board. 4 rounds, 0 strikes. A producer later confirmed it was the first time in the show's 47-year history that a family had achieved a perfect game through all regular rounds. And then came fast money. Priya volunteered to go first. Sanjay would go second. They separated. Sanjay put on the headphones and stepped off stage, the way the rules require. Priya stood at the Fast Money podium. She placed her hands flat on the counter, fingers spread. She looked at Steve. "You ready?" Steve asked. "I was born ready," Priya said. Steve laughed. Okay, all right." He held up his card. The clock was set to 20 seconds. "Name a food that comes in a can." "Tuna." "Name something you'd find on a teacher's desk." "An apple." "Name a month people get married." "June." "Name something that has a bell." "A church." "Name something you do before bed." "Brush your teeth." 5 questions. 5 answers. Each one delivered in under 2 seconds. No hesitation, no filler words, no or oh or good question. Just the answer, clean and immediate. Like a reflex, like breathing. Steve turned to the board. The audience was already buzzing. The music played. Tuna. Number 1 answer. 42 points. An apple. Number 1 answer. 31 points. June. Number 1 answer. 44 points. A church. Number 1 answer. 27 points. Brush your teeth. Number 1 answer. 56 points. 200 points. Exactly 200. Every answer, the number 1 answer. A perfect score. In 20 seconds. The studio fell completely silent. Steve Harvey dropped his card. He stepped back from the podium. He looked at the board. He looked at Priya. He looked at the board again. His mouth opened. No sound came out. He turned a full 360 degrees in place. A complete circle, his arms slightly out, like a man looking for the hidden cameras, looking for the trick, looking for someone to explain what had just happened. "In all my years," Steve said. He stopped. He shook his head. "In all my years. That has never happened. 200 points. 5 number 1 answers. Ma'am, what do you do for a living?" "I'm a biostatistician," Priya said. Steve stared at her. "A bio what?" "I study numbers," Priya said. She smiled. Steve put his hands on his head. "She studies numbers! She studies numbers and she just played the most perfect round of Fast Money I have ever seen." He turned to the camera. "Somebody call the Guinness people. Call them right now." A camera operator on the left side of the stage later told a journalist that 3 crew members were in tears. Not from sadness, but from disbelief. He said that in 8 years on the show, he had never seen the crew react like an audience. But Steve wasn't done. They brought Sanjay back. Sanjay did not know Priya's score. The headphones had been on. He walked to the podium and Steve looked at him and said, "Your wife already won." Sanjay blinked. "What?" 200 points. 5 number 1 answers. She already won. You don't need to answer a single question. But we're going to play anyway because I need to see if I'm dreaming. The audience was on their feet. Sanjay played. He scored 147 points. Combined total, 347. The highest combined Fast Money score ever recorded on Family Feud. The board erupted. The number $20,000 appeared, and the Venkataraman family rushed the stage, and Lakshmi reached Priya first, cupping her daughter's face in both hands, pressing her forehead against Priya's forehead. The same gesture she had used when Priya was small, the Tamil mother's blessing, the transference of love through the one place where the soul is closest to the skin. "Your Appa is watching," Lakshmi whispered. The microphone caught it. The audience heard it. Steve heard it. "I want to talk to everyone watching at home right now," Steve said. He was standing at the edge of the family circle, his voice rough, his eyes red. "This woman just did something that has never been done. Not once in 47 years. 5 questions, 5 number 1 answers, 200 points. Perfect. He paused. He looked at Priya. But that's not the story. The story is that this woman is a mother. She's a daughter. She came to this country with 2 suitcases. She lost her father when she was 19, and she's standing here right now because she didn't give up. Not on her family, not on her dreams, not on herself. He stepped closer to Priya. His voice dropped. Numbers couldn't measure your heart. 5 words. He looked at her, and she looked at him, and Priya Venkataraman, the woman who could calculate a confidence interval in her head. The woman who had lain on a bathroom floor whispering, "Get up," to herself. The woman who had not cried on camera and did not plan to, pressed her lips together and her chin trembled, and a single tear rolled down her left cheek, and she wiped it with the back of her hand, and she laughed. She laughed through the tear, and the laugh was real, and the tear was real. And for one moment in that studio, everything that was real existed at the same time. The Kowalski family was already crossing the stage. Dan Kowalski, the father, a firefighter, was shaking Sanjay's hand. Dan's wife, Maria, was hugging Lakshmi. Their daughter, Sophie, who was 11, walked up to Priya and said, "You're the smartest person I've ever seen." Priya knelt down, this woman who had stood unblinking at the podium, and she said to Sophie, "I'm not the smartest. I just didn't stop practicing." But Steve wasn't done. He pulled Priya aside. The cameras kept rolling. He said, "I want to do something. I don't usually do this." He reached into his jacket. He pulled out a business card. "I have a friend who runs an education foundation. I want to connect you. Because what you just did, that wasn't luck, that was preparation. And I think you could teach other people how to prepare for things that matter a lot more than a game show." Priya took the card. She looked at it. She looked at Steve. She said, "My father was a teacher. He would have liked you very much." Steve's eyes filled. He turned away from the camera for a moment. When he turned back, he said, "I would have liked him too." The episode aired on April 11, 2023. The clip of Priya's perfect fast money round was uploaded to YouTube that afternoon. It had 5.3 million views in the first 10 hours. By the end of the week, it had 37 million. It trended globally for 5 days and became the second most watched Family Feud clip in the show's history. ESPN covered it. The Today Show covered it. The Times of India ran it on the front page of their entertainment section. The hashtag #PerfectPriya reached #1 in both the United States and India simultaneously. Something social media analysts said had never happened before for a game show clip. 3 weeks later, a compilation of Priya's answers was used in a statistics lecture at MIT. The professor, Dr. James Whitfield, told his students that Priya's performance was a masterclass in Bayesian reasoning, choosing the answer most likely to appear at the top of a survey distribution. "She didn't guess," Dr. Whitfield said. "She calculated." 3 months later, Priya partnered with the education foundation Steve had connected her with, the Harvey Foundation's Literacy Initiative, to create a program called Numbers for Everyone. The program provides free after-school mathematics tutoring for immigrant children in public schools in Baltimore, Houston, and Chicago. In its first year, the program served 412 students from 31 countries. Test scores among participants rose an average of 23%. A year after the episode aired, Lakshmi flew from Chennai to Baltimore one more time. She carried jasmine flowers in her suitcase. She carried a brass Ganesha figurine for Arjun's room. And she carried a photograph of Ramachandran, the one from 1992, holding his probability textbook. And she and Priya hung it on the wall of the study in the Ellicott City house, next to Priya's PhD diploma and a framed screenshot of the fast money board showing 200 points. Today, Priya is 46. She still works at Johns Hopkins. She published her 9th paper last year, a study on statistical modeling of early intervention outcomes for children with developmental delays. Arjun is 10 and has started his own probability notebook, just like his grandfather. Meera is 7 and has no interest in numbers whatsoever and wants to be a veterinarian. And Priya says this is exactly right. Sanjay still cannot cook samosas. Lakshmi still calls every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Chennai time. On the wall backstage at the Family Feud studio in Atlanta, next to a photograph of an old man with both fists raised, and a photograph of a woman kneeling beside her mother with a phone in her hand, and a photograph of twin sisters holding hands at center stage, there is a 4th photograph now. It shows a woman standing at the fast money podium, hands flat, fingers spread, chin level, eyes locked forward. The board behind her reads, 200. Beneath the photograph, someone from the crew wrote in red marker, "She studied numbers." A perfect score on a game show is a statistic. It is a number on a board under studio lights. But the woman who earned it was not built in that moment. She was built in a flat in Besant Nagar, where a father taught his daughter that falling is just data. She was built on a bathroom floor in Baltimore, where she whispered, "Get up," until her legs obeyed. She was built across 9,476 miles of ocean that her mother crossed, carrying jasmine and prayer, and the unshakable belief that her daughter's mind was a gift that darkness could borrow but never keep. Subscribe right now and hit that notification bell so you're here the next time someone does what everybody said was impossible. Share this video with the person in your life who needs to hear that preparation and perseverance can beat any odds. And drop a comment telling us about the teacher who changed the way you see numbers, or anything else, because behind every perfect score is someone who believed in you first.